We're going to install the throttle body onto the engine. First thing we need to do is remove our rags from the cylinders. Now these seals have been cleaned and are free from dirt, and I need to put a tiny bit of lubrication on the inside of the boot to help slide the throttle bodies onto the boots and be able to get a good seal. With the throttle bodies sitting on two rags and we have the orientation in the correct direction, we're going to place the hose onto the lower fitting. And we're going to place the other hose on the top fitting. Place the third towel in the middle and orient the throttle body in a sideways position so we can access the two hose clamps. We need to slide these two hose clamps back onto their end of the hose. Rock the throttle body assembly back and place the front cable into the front slot and partially tighten down the nut. Now we need to install the throttle cable back onto the cam. With the throttle cable installed, we can now maneuver the throttle body toward the engine. Slowly push the two water hoses below cylinder 1 port and slowly work it down, not forcing it, till it kind of drops into position. There we go. With the idle adjustment cable routed just behind the throttle bodies, take the end of the adjustment and slide it onto its mount. Now insert the throttle body into the boots. Take a little bit of pressure, work each one in, one at a time. Kind of go back and forth, rocking until they fall in. With the mallet, we're going to do the final seat of the throttle bodies by gently tapping on the back of the frame in back and forth motions until we ensure it's completely bottomed on the boots. We're going to tighten our boot clamps. There's a little bump on the boot that the clamp fits into and prevents it from turning. Proceed to tighten the clamp. Proceed to tighten the fourth boot. Make sure the throttle body is still fully seated and proceed to tighten clamps 2 and 3. Now that the throttle body is installed, we need to install the second throttle cable. Feed this throttle cable underneath the fuel rail and proceed to thread the cable onto the cam. Now that we have the throttle cable installed, we need to tighten the throttle cable nuts. We need to maintain about an 1/8 inch of play in the throttle. We may need to adjust the lower and upper nut in order to attain these settings. Now that we have the throttle cables initially adjusted, we need to finish tightening down all the nuts. Ensure that the throttle works correctly all throughout the turning range. And any small adjustments we can make in the cable adjustment up at the front. Apply a small amount of cable lube to the cable and cam. Make sure all of the cables underneath the throttle body are routed correctly and not pitched. Proceed to connect the white connectors and tuck underneath the wire clamp. With the airbox upside down, make sure the breather hose is firmly attached. We don't want this to come disconnected once we start assembling. Proceed to slide the hose in front of the swing arm and right behind the engine. There's a little slot where the tube slides through. Proceed to set the box down. Now put each clamp onto the airbox, aligning the keyway. Make sure the orientation of the clamps are with the heads of the screws out on the first and fourth cylinder, and they are up on the second and third cylinder. Place the crankcase breather hose underneath the fuel rail in the middle in order to keep the hose out of the way while we drop the box into its position. Proceed to lower the box into its position while maneuvering around the cables, slowly working it down. I installed the plate onto the airbox and I'm going to adjust it back and tighten it down. With the airbox partially onto the throttle body, we want to finish the seat by tapping on the back of the airbox until it is fully seated. Now tighten the two frame bolts. Proceed to make sure all the boots are fully seated. Proceed to tighten down each clamp. Now that all the clamps are tight, we can finish putting in the bolts on the mount. Proceed to torque the 70 inch-pounds. Confirm that there are no pinched wires and that the hoses are in the right place. Move the crankcase breather hose underneath the fuel rail and pull out in front of the rail. Place the clamp on the hose and slide the hose up onto the airbox. Slide the clamp up onto the end of the hose. Maneuver this wire underneath the fuel rail and over top of the airbox inlet, working the wires around and slowly pushing in. To line up with the connectors. Attach each connector, making sure they snap together. Push that one down and insert the other one. We need to install the bolts back onto our air sensor. Make sure the hose is not pinched or the wire is not pinched, and lightly tighten. Slide the clamp onto our air hose and slide the air hose onto the airbox. Position the clamp on the end of the hose. Now we're going to install our tool tray. Now we're going to screw the tray in with our 3 Phillips head screws. Now we're going to mount the tray with our 2 mounting bolts. Now insert the harness into the ECU firmly until you hear a click. Insert the air cable into the air sensor. Insert the air cleaner and filter cover. Proceed to screw down the filter cover with the Phillips head screws. We're now going to disassemble this area of the engine in order to replace the seals on the steel tube that runs between the engine and the thermostat. We'll start by loosening the two bolts. We'll now proceed to loosen the top bolt. We'll now loosen the bolt on the air valve. We need to remove this frame member. Do that by rotating it counterclockwise slightly and slowly work it out. We're now going to remove the power system. Remove the first hose from the air box and remove each of the hoses from the engine. Now that the power system is out of the way, we can disconnect the connector by placing a screwdriver underneath the tab and pulling. Next, you want to remove this rubber separator. You do that by slowly pulling each section out and working it out from under the wires. You can now see where there's corrosion inside this area where it's been leaking. We're going to remove these two coils in order to gain access to the two pipes. Took a rag and cleaned inside the holes, and I'm now going to loosen the bolts. Now I'm going to loosen this bolt here, which holds the thermostat to the water pipe with this T27 Torx. Loosen the bolt on the bottom side of the pipe. I'm now going to remove this connector. There's a little push tab underneath, and you kind of push up and slide it off. Reach down, pull some of the cables out of the way, and pull the thermostat off the pipe. Now with the front of the water pipe free, we can pull these two parts of the pipe out of the engine. I'm using a little plastic block to help pull up and slowly work it out. Disconnect this water hose. We're now going to clean the pipe. I'm going to be using a little bit of steel wool with some soap and just work the corrosion off. With the pipe cleaned, I'm going to add a little bit of lubricant to the ends of the pipe. Now slide the O-rings on. Work the pipe underneath the throttle cables and into position. Now work the pipe into the top of the head. Now reinstall the bolts. Gently pull the wires back, line the thermostat up with the seal, and gently rock it on. Install the Torx screw into the top of the pipe. Install the screw into the lower bracket. Torque to 88 inch-pounds. Reconnect the water hose and slide the clamp up. Reinstall the spark plug coils. Reinstall the rubber insulator. Slide it underneath the throttle cables and work it up through under the wires and over the thermostat. Work the power connectors down the right side, leaving room for the throttle cables to move freely. To reinstall the power system, we first need to connect the relay back to the connector. Now connect the hoses to the engine. Slide the frame T-bar under the solenoid and over top the frame, under the frame on this side, and under the frame on this side. Slowly work it into position. Now install the bolts. Tighten the bolt to 57 foot-pounds. Install the bolt into the solenoid and tighten to 88 inch-pounds. Make sure we torque the water pump drain bolt to 88 inch-pounds. Now we can pour the antifreeze back into the radiator. We're now going to adjust the throttle position sensor. We do that by entering diagnostic mode. Hold the two buttons, turn on the key, and wait till the display says diag. Okay, let go. Now press again both buttons to select. Okay, now we're in the first program mode, which is the throttle position sensor. We now need to adjust the throttle position sensor for maximum throttle. Maximum throttle range is 97 through 100. So we're going to set it to at least 98. And okay, right now it's already at 98. And if I move it just a little further, 99, so I just back it off just a fraction there. Lock down the sensor at this point, and we'll revisit this once we have our throttle body synced and idle adjustment made. I'm now going to install the tank. I have a towel placed here so that I could set down the tank without it being in the proper position. I have my lift stick handy. I also have handy the bolt for the bottom pivot of the gas tank. Okay, I'm going to bring the hoses around. Okay, I'm going to set this in the approximate position. Bring in the blanket up under the rear of the tank, lift it up, and set my stick in the hole and in the top. Lift the towel out of the way, set it in position. Now that it's in position, I'm going to slide the bolt in this side. We're now going to slide the two hoses down between the engine and the rear swing arm. We're now going to connect the gas line, slide it over, push till it snaps. We're going to install the safety clip by placing it on underneath and sliding it up. We're now going to connect the fuel return line. Slide the fuel return line over the connector. Now slide the clamp over the hose. We're now going to connect the connectors. Connect the white socket to the white plug and connect the green one by the fuel line. We're now ready to sync the throttle bodies. Pull each vacuum cap off each cylinder. Now start the engine. Now that we have the throttle body synced and the idle set, now we need to adjust the throttle position sensor again. The current range right now is between 13 and 98. The range is supposed to be 15 through 100. So I'm going to loosen the adjustment. I'm going to move this to 15. Just to 15. 15 through 100. See how that idles. So, turn off the ignition. Turn it back on. Now it's off. Now that the throttle bodies have been synced the second time, we can replace the vacuum caps. We're now ready to put the tank down. Lift up and bring the stick out. Slowly bring it down, making sure that none of the wires are getting pinched. Insert the 2 bolts. Snug up. Now we're ready to tighten up the rear bolt. Take a 12mm box wrench, put on a nut, take a 12mm socket, and tighten. Next we're going to install the gray plastics. Do that by placing it in front of the rear plastic and sliding back. Place a push pin into the top hole and lock. Now you can let go. Insert the screw in the rear. In this case I have a ground wire for an accessory. Place the nut in the back and tighten. Install the push pin on the bottom side. Now install the final screw. We're now going to install the black plastic. Place the post into the grommet. Slide in. And install the push pin. Push the center in. Install the screw. We're now going to install the right silver panel using the same procedure we used on the left side. Place it in front of the plastic, slide back, so it snaps together, and place the position. Put the push pin in, put the nut in, install the push pin into the hole in the bottom. Install the final bolt. Now we're going to install the black plastic. Place the post into the grommet. Slide the push pin in. Insert the screw. Okay, we're going to install the right fairing. We start by laying a blanket on the floor. Bring the front of the fairing over so we can plug the turn signals in. Slide the fairing under the upper fairing. Push in and put one screw in here in the middle. While holding it, take the screw for the middle, line it up, and Now we need to put in the last 2 screws. Insert the lower fairing bolt. We're now going to install the black plastic. Begin by sliding it up underneath the upper fairing. Put the top push pin. Okay. With that in, we can now get the screws in. Put the lower screw in. Put the top screw in. And put the middle screw in. We're now ready to install the left fairing. Bring the front of the fairing close to the front of the top fairing so we can plug in the turn signal. Now slide the lower half up under the top half. Then hold and line up the holes. And screw the center screw in. Line up the hole for the middle screw and thread it. We now want to put the 2 upper fairing screws in. Now insert the lower screw. Hold the 2 fairings together and insert the bottom screw and screw it in. Insert the upper screw. Insert the lower screw. Hold it together and screw it in. Lightly snug up. We're going to install the black plastic on the left side. We do that by sliding this end up underneath the fairing, the top fairing, and sliding this underneath and working it up into position. Insert the push pin into the lower hole. Screw in the lower screw. Screw in the upper screw. And screw in the middle screw. Insert the 2 remaining push pins.
And there she is, all back together. Everything cleaned up. Looking shiny. All right, going for my test ride. Engine idling smooth, 1000 RPM. Response is good. And gotta wait for a school bus. All right. All right, first impressions, not bad. I'm at 3,500, doing 50 mile an hour. Just a light buzz through this handlebar, but not much. All right, so the vibration at 3,000 RPM is good. It's a little bit less than I had before. Tiny bit of vibration on the tips. nothing in the grip. Same on this side, just a tiny bit on the right. They feel about equal, so one side of the engine is not vibrating any more than the other side. Same thing on the tank, just a light buzz, but it's about equal. Okay, let's try 4,000. 4,000. Same thing, they're equal. Equal on both sides of the tank. Not much different than 3,000. And 5,000. Not bad, just a tiny bit more, but not much. It's very smooth through the range. Okay, take my throttle lock off. Power's good. Let me see if I could do an open throttle test through the first 2 gears. Nobody coming. Nobody in front, nobody behind. Okay. Very good, very smooth through the range. For the first time, I can go, since I bought the bike, I can go through the entire rev range and not have excessive vibration anywhere. It's very smooth all the way through the range. Great. I'm very happy. 2 things I've done to improve the vibration of the bike or the perception of vibration. One is I replaced the grips with foam grips. These grips are from Parts Unlimited, and they're a little bit thicker in diameter. They isolate well vibration. The thicker diameter is good for my hands because I have arthritis in my fingers, and it just feels more comfortable. I did have to drill out the end caps to 1 inch in order to accommodate the bar ends, but it worked out well. The second thing I did to improve the vibration or perception of vibration is I replaced the foot peg rubbers. The foot peg rubbers between Gen 1 and Gen 3 are the same mounting. However, the Gen 1 rubbers are solid rubber. The Gen 3 rubbers have a hollow core and isolate vibration much better. So between those 2 changes, everything's worked out really well. The adjustments that I made and the cleaning all worked out well. The counterbalancer adjuster, I no longer have peaks at different RPM ranges. It's nice and smooth. And overall, I think the project came out really well. Well, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up or hit the subscribe button. Hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you and goodbye.